The most outrageous feasts from history. Hello and welcome back to another video here on Limitless Luxury. Now, a best way to celebrate an event and show off your wealth is to throw a feast for outsiders. Most of these feasts, though, are within limits of expense and extravagance. However, some feasts are so extravagant that food is in such abundance that just reading about them is enough to fill you up. In today's video, we will be taking a look at the most extravagant feasts from history you've probably never imagined. Stay tuned. Feast of the Pheasant. What do you do if you want to encourage people to go to war? In the case of Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, in 1452, he held a lavish banquet to drum up support for a crusade against the Turks. Called the Feast of the Pheasant, it was one of the most lavish banquets ever held. The feast hall was decorated with huge displays. One table featured a model church large enough to hold a choir, while a further 28 musicians were hidden inside a pie. Fake ships sailed amongst the guests, and a live lion could be seen in a false forest. A fire-breathing dragon swept overhead, and a little boy on a deer rode about singing. The highlight of the feast was an elephant, probably mechanical, that was led in the hall by a giant Turkish man. A lady, representing Constantinople, on the back of the elephant, called out for the men present to rescue her. After 50 different dishes were served, the guests swore an oath to the pheasant over a living bird. They promised to participate in the crusade to recapture Constantinople, but no crusade followed. The Acclimatization Society of Great Britain. In the 19th century, many European thinkers joined societies designed to bring non-native species into new countries. They thought that these species could be adapted to be useful to agriculture and society in general. Of course, we now know that species can be invasive and cause untold damage to an ecosystem. The Acclimatization Society of Great Britain decided to kick off their campaign with a feast. At their first dinner, guests were greeted by a hall decorated with stuffed birds and fish and the heads of other animals that they thought might be brought over to Britain. But it was the meal that really showed what new species could do for the dining tables of the nation. Among the dishes served were bird's nest soup, which guests thought not worth the expense, and a soup made from sea snails. Kangaroo was boiled to perfection, a course made from a rare hybrid of the hare, and the rabbit was produced. Birds from Dominique, Syrian pigs, the Honduras turkey, and all manner of fish found their way to the table. Even seaweed jelly was served. Few, if any, of these meals have made their way into the everyday English diet, however. Manchu hand feast. Sometimes a single day is just not long enough to fit in all the gormandizing you plan to do. The Manchu hand feast was so luxurious that it took 3 days to serve all the foods, or so the story goes. This meal became a symbol for Chinese unity. Under the rule of Emperor Kangxi, there was increasing tension between the Manchu and Han factions in the nation. To bring them together, the emperor decided that only a superlative meal could heal the rift. For his 66th birthday, he held 6 banquets over 3 days, which saw over 300 dishes being served. Among these dishes, you could sample ones called Snowy Palm, a bear claw with sturgeon, and Golden Eyes and Burning Brains, made from bean curd and bird brains. One of the dishes was an imitated leopard fetus, though no one is sure what was used for the imitation. Simpler plates featured grilled ape. Some scholars question whether this feast ever actually happened, but most chose to believe that it did or dream about being one of the diners. Banquet of Chestnuts. Sometimes the entertainments presented at a feast overshadow the dishes on the table. At the Banquet of Chestnuts, it was very definitely the events occurring under the table that caught most people's interest. The Vatican is not particularly noted for its rocking nightlife today, but there have been times when the popes have hosted lavish affairs, in all senses of the word. Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, was a member of one of Italy's most notorious families. Unusually for a celibate priest, he had children. The Pope's son Cesar was to be the host at the Banquet of Chestnuts. On the 31st of October, 1501, Cesar arranged a banquet in the Papal Palace. According to the official in charge of ceremonies, this party was attended by 50 honest prostitutes, called courtesans, who danced after dinner with the attendants and others who were present, at first in their garments, then naked. After dinner, the candelabra with the burning candles were taken from the tables and placed on the floor and chestnuts were strewn around, which the naked courtesans picked up, creeping on hands and knees between the chandeliers while the Pope, Cesare, and his sister Lucretia looked on. Finally, prizes were announced for those who could perform the act most often with the courtesans, such as tunics of silk, shoes, barrets, and other things. Raiding a zoo. For 4 months, from September 1870, the city of Paris was under siege by Prussian forces. Instead of bombarding the city, it was decided that Paris would be starved into submission. For the people of the city, food soon became scarce. The Parisians ate thousands of horses, their dogs and cats. Even rats became prized meals. One restaurant, however, served a more exotic menu. Alexander Etienne Coron was one of the most famous chefs of his age. His restaurant Voisin was famed for its brilliant food. With ingredients running low, it was perhaps inevitable that when the Paris Zoo announced it would have to put down its animals because they could no longer feed them, that Coron should see an opportunity. He would serve an extraordinary Christmas meal. The feast began with a donkey's head accompanied by sardines, an elephant consomme, fried camel, kangaroo stew, wolf with a deer sauce, and an antelope with truffles. Though there were limited supplies of food, Coron still had access to the wines of Paris, fully stocked cellars. The finest wines were paired with these wild dishes. So it is all for today's most extravagant feast from history. Hope you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.